Good afternoon. This is the Labour Report, Saturday the 21st November 2020. This week we saw the most incredible destruction of the CCMA, and we talk about government's uncanny ability to trash the rare and one and only institution which is working. If it wouldn't be so serious, it would be funny. I, for one, believe what they're doing is not only destructive but is deliberate. I'm Michael Bagram. I'm the Labour spokesperson for the Democratic Alliance. There are two issues that I want to speak about today, Saturday the 21st November. These issues are arising out of a seemingly boring meeting of the Labour Portfolio Committee during this past week. Firstly, the Senior Convening Commissioner of the CCMA let us know that with the budgetary cuts, there are going to be some serious implications at the Commission for Conciliation, Mediation and Arbitration. As everyone knows, from the medium-term budget, it is necessary for all the departments in government to take the hard-earned money from the taxpayer and use it to pay 10.5 billion, if not more, to SAA. What does this mean? Government doesn't have the money, so they've had to take money away from all the various departments, including the Department of Employment and Labour. What does this mean? This means that the CCMA has to now take an immediate budget cut of 99 million rand. Just think about that. They've got to take a budget cut when at this very moment in history the CCMA is ratcheting up the complaints from the public, the various retrenchments, the dismissals, everything that has arisen out of the various problems of the lockdown have landed up at the doors of the CCMA, who desperately need more and more budget to employ more and more commissioners, more space, more machinery, more everything. And yet what happens? They have to take a budget cut. We do know that at this stage, about half, if not more, of their complaints come in as walk-ins. In other words, people coming into the offices of the various CCMAs around the country. Well, because of COVID-19, obviously the Senior Convening Commissioner had to tell the public that they must go online and they must lodge their complaints online. Well, of course, half the public can't do that. They don't have the wherewithal, they don't have the computers, the data, the knowledge to be able to lodge their complaints online. Over and above the fact that more often than not these online applications are down. But unfortunately, because of COVID-19, that ability to the public has now been taken away from them. We saw a very unfortunate situation in Cape Town where an individual insisted on lodging his complaint at the CCMA, and when he came in, he refused to move. They had to call the police to remove him. So that's a problem. But there's a bigger problem. And that bigger problem is devastatingly obvious. We know about 60% of the commissioners of the CCMA are part-time commissioners. In other words, they're not employees of the Department of Employment and Labour, but they are independent contractors, part-time commissioners. 60% of them. We also know that that 60%, normally the more senior commissioners, are the ones that hear the arbitrations. Now, those are the ones that give the arbitration awards if the cases have been unable to be settled at conciliation. They've been told, because of the budget cuts, the CCMA cannot afford to employ them during the months of December 2020 and January 21. So you can imagine the backlog that is going to be built up. Over and above the fact that people who can't have their cases heard for 2 months, the backlog will affect the whole of the year 2021. What does that mean? that means that we're going to have a whole lot of problems out there in the workplace. We're going to have possibly more strikes. We're going to have individuals wanting to take the law into their own hands. We're going to have real problems at the workplace. Many employers, unfortunately, are expressing, well, that can't be helped. They can't come here, well, that's fine. But that's not really fine. Imagine the employer who has unfairly dismissed someone, and then they're going to face a reinstatement from a commissioner at the CCMA in due course. Well, under normal circumstances, that dispute would have been heard within a month, maybe 6 weeks. And if they have to reinstate the person, they've got to give them the 6 weeks back pay. Imagine if they have to reinstate them 6 months later. That means a small business has to go and pay 6 months' worth of salary to that individual through no fault of their own, but because the budget had been cut for the CCMA and they were unable to hear the arbitration up front. That's a real problem. A real problem is caused by the 10.5 billion that has to go to SAA. We are told that it'll probably be more than 10.5 billion, it'll probably ratchet it up to 14 billion. That's going to be a real problem. This means that there's going to be very little happening at the CCMA over December, January. This also means that the trade unions are going to look for alternative means of dispute resolution. And you know what happens then? That might be dispute resolution that we don't want to see. We don't want to see disputes on the streets. We need to have them institutionalized. And unfortunately, the institution that handles these disputes is going to be cut off at the knees. This is not the fault of the Senior Convening Commissioner. This is not the fault of the CCMA. This is the fault of SAA. Of course, I do believe that the Minister of Employment and Labour must look elsewhere within his department where else he can do budget cuts. He has dysfunctional units such as the UIF and the Compensation Fund. He has units that are nice to have. He can take the money from them. He doesn't have to take the money away from the CCMA. That is a real desperate situation. We have some of the most fantastic labour laws in the world, but laws are worth nothing if they can't be implemented, if they can't be enforced. Now, the only body that enforces our labour laws is the CCMA and the bargaining councils who get their funding from the CCMA, and obviously they're going to have to turn down some of their cases themselves. They're not going to get so much funding from the CCMA in the future. So thank you for listening to me. This is Saturday, the 21st of November 2020. It's Michael Bagram, Labour spokesperson. If it wasn't so serious, it would be funny. Thank you.